Hi, my name is Ian, Senior Systems Engineer for BeyondNet Solutions. Today I want to go over a couple of different ways that you can access Windows Virtual Desktop. So the first way, and probably the most popular way to access it, is through a traditional remote desktop protocol, similar to what you would normally see with terminal services and remote apps. Chances are you probably worked in some environment where you have a remote desktop server that you can access applications from, where all of the applications are centrally managed and hosted, and you basically just initiate a connection to that server. This is really similar. One of the big differences is that this is hosted in Azure in the cloud, so it's accessible from anywhere. And the other big difference is this is actually based off of Windows 10, so it's a much more user-friendly experience. So since I already have this set up on my computer, I have this shortcut right here that I can go ahead and click on to access the Windows Virtual Desktop. So I actually already have my credentials cached, saved to my system, so it's just going to automatically log me in. Now the credentials that it's using is actually the same as my Office 365 account. So one of the really nice things about this is I have the same credentials to log into my Office 365 applications, email, Windows Virtual Desktop. Basically, especially if I decide to implement SSO with other applications outside of Office 365, I essentially have just one set of credentials to remember for all of my business systems. So it's super easy to remember and manage. Even from an IT management standpoint or a support standpoint, if I need to call in for support, there's just one set of credentials that I might need assistance with, as opposed to a lot of traditional setups you see nowadays where you have your on-premise credentials to log on to your computer, then a separate Office 365 login, and then throw in any other applications that you have. And it can be a real headache to remember and manage all of those credentials. And it can even be a headache for your IT department or IT provider to try to manage those for you. So yeah, now I'm actually logged on to the Windows Virtual Desktop. As you can see, that connection popped up pretty fast once I initiated it. This is a pretty basic proof of concept environment. We just have a few applications that you would see, I guess you could say productivity applications that you would see pretty much at any small or medium-sized business organization. So I have Outlook set up right here, Adobe Acrobat. We can go to the Start menu and see what else they have going on, Photos, OneDrive, Publisher, all that fun stuff. One of the really nice things about this Windows Virtual Desktop is it's all based off of what you would call a golden image. It's basically a base image that your IT provider can manage and install applications on. And then once that golden image is configured accordingly and customized to your company's needs, it can be assigned to a specific user pool within the Windows Virtual Desktop pools. So let's say you have a couple of different departments in your organization, and let's say maybe you have a graphic design department and they all need access to Adobe Photoshop. You could actually make one template based off of that department, and then get Adobe Photoshop installed on there, assign that template to that department, and anybody with access to that WVD pool would automatically have Photoshop on that WVD. On the other hand, you may have some users, like maybe let's say your receptionist or a couple of salespeople that don't need Photoshop, and you just have a more basic image for those guys with just kind of your basic applications like Office and a couple of web browsers, maybe a couple of other document management solutions, whatever your organization might use. You can have that basic image template assigned for that specific department. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out of this Windows Virtual Desktop session. And now I want to also show you how you can access this from a web browser. Something that's really handy is with this link. I can access the Windows Virtual Desktop from any computer that has a web browser and an internet connection. So I'm not connected to any kind of VPN client. I'm just accessing this directly through the internet. This method of accessing the WVD tends to take a little longer to get to. So kind of what we normally recommend is that you use the remote desktop protocol for a smoother and more efficient and productive experience. But again, this is just another method that you can use to access the WVD from pretty much any location at any time where you have a computer and internet access. grab these credentials real quick. Okay, and again, this is my Office 365 credentials, so pretty much anything work related. It's one set of credentials I have to remember. And even if you implement MFA, again, it's just one authentication protocol that you have to go through for the MFA. And once you're logged into the MFA or authenticated through the MFA, then you're into any other applications that are tied to that, and you don't have to worry about, um, you know, 3 different MFAs that you have to get through just to get to your email, for example. Okay, and as you saw, that was a really similar looking remote desktop icon that we just clicked on to initiate the connection. I think it might prompt us for the credentials one more time here. Yeah, and this is still the Office 365 credentials. And just like that, we're in. And as you can see, it picked me up pretty much exactly where I left off from the remote desktop protocol. So I had Outlook open. Outlook is still open where I left it. Adobe, that's still open. Everything that I just had open on that other session is still open right here. So again, super easy to access from anywhere at any time. As you can see, you can also resize this browser window to whatever size you want the remote desktop to be. I have multiple monitors. I can even spread that across multiple monitors if I want to. Then I basically have a multi-monitor experience. Something I may have failed to point out earlier when I was connected with the remote desktop protocol, I was also connected from all 3 of my monitors. So the remote desktop protocol does support multi-monitors. Both of these methods also support printer redirection, although that's not necessarily the best method for using printing, especially if you're in an office setting. Probably the more efficient way of doing that is to have printers, network printers on site tied into a print server within Azure, and then you have some really efficient printing. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of how you can access Windows Virtual Desktop from a computer. Um, and this is cross-platform, so you can also get to this from a Mac or even like a Chromebook. Also, another thing that I may show you in a later video is you can also access this from any mobile platform. So if you have an iOS device, like an iPhone or an Android phone or a tablet or an iPad, you can actually download the Microsoft Remote Desktop application and access this Windows Virtual Desktop from the tablet or the phone or whatever kind of device you have. So this works really well across all device types and all platforms. If you have any other questions on this, please feel free to contact Jonathan Elliott at Beyond Net Solutions to learn more about the solution.